we move on to Samuel Kalika, who is an artist designer and founder of the Critical Concrete in Porto. In his projects, he uses places, he refurbishes those places in a socially relevant manner, in a way that social architecture works as a format of education, from socially engaged art to participatory social architecture.
Absolutely, you said it all almost. I start like that, right? Yes. Do you hear me well? Is all good? The sound? Super. So the first thing I wanted to say a little bit, like to respond to the video we had the chance to see, and actually almost like to respond to you, is that it's actually not the same also to do politically engaged art or socially engaged practices in general when you work in a democracy or any kind of democratic system, or you work in a dictatorship. There's like a very strong difference here, and I think like I wanted to bring the Grupo CADA, which is Colectivo de Acciones de Arte, which is so it's a politically engaged artistic group from the early 80s, late 70s in Chile under the dictatorship of Pinochet, and they conducted a series of action which you can see a little bit here. So the first one is like they were like putting big carteles, big posters with written "No más," like no more, and then that was completed with no more murders, no more people disappearing, and so on. And then, so that was like one of their actions, I think quite charismatic. And then the other one that you see here is the last one that they did in '85, where they published in newspapers the picture of this woman saying "viuda," viuda, no sabes, widow. So because this woman lost her husband during a demonstration, and so like there's a small text explaining a little bit the situation, and it's quite political, it's quite dense. So it's a little bit like to kind of like put a little bit in one category, which is very different to the one like that we're working a little bit in more democratic countries, where you have like Yada, Bruguera, Ai Weiwei working with art as something that helps them to protest, to express themselves freely, whereas here we have a bit of a different dynamic where art is widely accepted and where it's extremely elitistic. We really like between ourselves and we function very well between ourselves. But I remember also like one conversation, one talk I assisted when I was a student of fine arts, and Manuel Delgado was an activist in Barcelona. Came to us and he talked to us about his work, and we were all like, yeah, full of energy, like, you know, like want to change the world and do artistic project, and it's fantastic. And this guy was like, you know what, like, we don't need you. Like, please do not do art when we protest, because you're taking the legitimacy of our fight, of our discourse. And it was, I mean, of course, it was a bit provocative, but I think, I mean, for me, it was very impactful and very strong to think that you need to be careful also when you're an artist. And a little bit like to continue my transition to what we're doing. I think like when we talk about political strategy in democracies, a tactic, and it was a little bit underlying all the projects you were presenting, is that taking the art label and working like, a little bit like discreetly is a tactic that is efficient to disrupt or to act. I think that's it for my introduction. So, right, so now I'm going to explain you a little bit what we did to answer the question that was, how do we refurbish social housing configuration, cultural spaces in general? How do we refurbish socially relevant spaces when you don't have money, when you don't have funds to do this? And then integrate that with some kind of artistic practice. This went quickly off the table, but anyway. So what we decided to do is to work a little bit with this. I like this diagram, it's very, very fancy. You have like the local community working with the students and the expert, and a lot of exchange in all directions, and more diagrams here. So this is a little bit like how we work. So basically what we organize is educational workshops, like in forms of summer school or in forms of workshop, like weekend workshop, where we work on socially relevant spaces and involve students, right? So we set up this educational program, and instead of having them going and partying in summer, in festivals, or building like temporary installation, or going into summer schools of architecture, which are like very theoretical normally, and like you study a lot, but then you don't do shit. So the idea was like put a little bit all that together and steer it up, and so set it up as a program where we have like a practical part and a theoretical part, and the practical part would be refurbishing these places. So so we teach students, we bring like super interesting mentors, and refurbish these places actually. So we try to work. So yeah, materials. I'm gonna go a little bit like to the next one. So we do this workshop of social and sustainable architecture, right? So I think the social part is quite clear. Like we work with socially relevant places. I said it about 10 times in a minute, so I think that's clear now. And then when it comes to sustainable architecture, because of course, like I forgot to mention that the process is very participatory. So we fight a little bit with the mentors that we invite not to plan, and we ask them not to plan anything or the least. And so that when they come and the students start to work with them, there is not a real plan, and they can like design together what's going to happen. But we do have an idea of how we want them to work. So we try to foster as much upcycling, recycling as we can. Of course, like we try to be as local as possible. We are as ecologically responsible as possible. I need to put in an next presentation, but of course, like the food is vegetarian and local. And then when it comes to design, we ask them to work with simple technologies that they can do and teach in the future, right? So that there is a real replication in what's happening there. And then, of course, like when you talk about sustainable design, you want it to be rock solid. So like we ask them to make as robust configuration structures as possible, and to be repairable, because nothing lasts forever. So also because we don't know everything yet, we set up with a partner organization a small research lab where we work in two main directions right now. So one part is, and I think that's going to be familiar to almost all of you southern people. So we're based in Porto, I forgot to say. And you guys probably know that in all southern Europe, like we're super nice and super warm in summer, but in winter we're freezing, like much more than in any northern country, because the houses are uninsulated, because now with the crisis it's become really expensive to heat your house with electricity, and basically like we don't have good solutions for that. Unless that, like, yeah, sure, make a passive house and you're going to spend like 20,000 euro and try to, it's quite a complicated process. So we want to work on this process on a lower, the lower level a little bit, and try to have this affordable, low-key solution to improve like quality of life in the south even more. And then the other part is like, I really invite you, I did not put the name here, but I invite you to take a project that's really interesting. We want to build the machines of plastic recycling. The project is called Precious Plastic. It's by a Dutch designer, and he basically designed like four machines to process plastic, use plastic and make it new things. No? So we're working a little bit in this direction. What else? I think I said it a little bit, like of course, like participatory practice. This is more blah blah, so it's okay. I think now it's time to give you a little bit of an introduction of what we did. So now you see like a happy student, not very happy yet, because they were like really thinking, oh, how do we solve this problem? You see them scratching their head in front of the model and see how they would refurbish this house. I said it already, so practical, theoretical workshop. We invite people to come and here are the mentors a little bit that we brought. No? So like you can see Colectivo Warehouse, Pedro Cavaco-Leitao, more Colectivo Warehouse, and one is missing. Who is he? Oh man, he's gonna be, I hope he's not looking. Patrick Hubman was the fourth mentor. Anyhow, so we had like a lot of presentation in the afternoons, in late evening, and then like during the day they were like working hardcore for these 3 weeks. Now you see them like finally the happy people, happy working people pictures, more happy people, and this is a little bit like to introduce you quickly to the places that we choose to refurbish. In collaboration with the municipality district of Bonfim, which is situated in Porto. So they help us to locate one case in particular that would really need a refurbishment and where they could not work because of the legal framework of ILIA. I won't go into that now because it's too long. We can talk about it around a coffee later. But it's a typical housing structure that is a bit in a gray zone when it comes to refurbishment right now. So this is the house before. So this house was inhabited, and you can see the state a little bit how it is. Like there was no running water. The roof was falling. The floor was falling. So the municipality did the roof before we worked on the interior. Not the municipality, sorry, the Junta de Freguesia de Bonfim. And then I can proudly show you the pictures of how we hand the key. So that's the refurbishment that we did. We could have done better for sure in some in terms of repairability especially, but it's still like a kind of work in progress when it comes to our own project and our own working reflections. But still, the house was widely improved. There's water, and the house is insulated now. So yeah. Then we have also on a complementary part of this practice, we set up a production center. And we refurbished part of it. So the public part of it, we refurbished it also during the summer school. So also before picture, so Care Bears and mess, and then we paint the Care Bears out and make it a little more livable. So yeah, and this place is so it's an event space, co-working and co-building facilities, and we have it for. We use it for cultural events, but you notice like I did not mention art at all in this presentation so far. And it's also because as we want this to be a popular place, it's in a very popular neighborhood, like with nice old people and a lot of heroin. And so it's important for us to work a little bit on the side of that and try to have like more humble movie events, a little bit like there was in ZKU. I don't know if you're going to talk about that later, but like a little bit like, so we have the cinema sorpresa format where people come and so we pick up a team and then they choose which movie is going to be watched, for example. And of course, again, we cook vegetarian food and yeah. What else? Yeah, so that's a little bit like the activities that we're doing there. So to give you an idea, so we have this metal workshop, we do wood workshop, cinema sorpresa. Then we have this kind of small market, like popular market, neighborhood market that we also organize from time to time. And then we also want to expand this a little bit to a more educational platform. So like use this kind of research facilities to disseminate more what we're doing, right? So you'll see, for example, like there is a upcoming, because there's no date yet, it's going to be for May, probably May, June. But we're going to have like more wood workshop, rocket stove workshop, which is a heating stove getting a little bit popular right now, finally. Very efficient in terms of wood heating and doing very, with very little emissions, gas emissions. We are having also one guy that is very motivated to do some web design workshop and HTML and stuff like that, because there is also problems of employment in Portugal, a little bit like here. So it's important to have all this educational platform to share knowledge and give opportunities to your surrounding. And I think that must be the last slide. No, of course, the partners. So that's our beautiful partners. It would be unfair to end the presentation without them because they do help us a lot in all these processes. And you can see a little bit here that there is a big variety of companies, administration, non-for-profits that, so it's really like a trans-sectorial project in all directions. And yeah, I think that's it now. Or I go on, or? Yeah, thank you.